With the 2.1 livestream ended, it has completely murdered all our Solar J savings again. Now, given they are giving us back 30 fat pulls for the anniversary, so we can actually think very well about what banners to pull for without being full copium. And today, we'll be analyzing the new characters and banners in order to help you decide which banner to splurge on. Note that I would not be including links for this video though. You kinda can't do that. And yeah, let's get right into it. The first banner we'll be greeted in 2.1 will be for the new character, Mummy Acheron. She's a lightning the healthy path character, and allow me to start with the conclusion first. Raiden Mei is an insanely strong multi-target damage dealer. Taking a look at her kit, she has a skill and talent that both helps her use her ultimate as much as possible. Let's first understand how her ultimate works. You will notice that her ult icon isn't quite the usual glowing orb icon like the other characters. Instead, you have this 9-petal flower instead. After obtaining 9 of these petals named Slashed Dream, you'll be able to use her ultimate. That's right, she does not need energy whatsoever. Truly a being outside of the rules. The ultimate itself is the most unique ult in the entire game as well. Players get to choose the first 3 targets that she attacks. From the livestream itself, these first 3 slashes are single target, but they will deal damage to all enemies or at least adjacent ones if the target you choose has a unique debuff applied by Acheron's talent, which we will cover later. After 3 of her initial slashes, she proceeds to do an AoE damage to end the ultimate. It is relatively straightforward. You just do a crud ton of damage. Moving on, we'll be looking at her skill. It is a simple 3-target attack that does some damage. On top of that, it gives Acheron 1 stack of Slashed Dream. From the livestream as well, she is shown to land a unique debuff on her skill right here. After that, when she does her ult, only when Acheron attacks these targets with the debuff, only then the damage spreads to all other enemies. When she attacks the enemy without this debuff, it only hurts this target itself. Hence, it is pretty clear Acheron's gameplay revolves around landing the debuff, getting her ultimate, and ult as often as possible to do as much damage as she possibly can. However, her kit has one gaping flaw right now, which is how she's very slow in charging an ult and landing her debuff if she only relies on herself and her skill here. You need 9 stacks of Slash Dream after all. Thankfully, when we look at her talent, this issue is resolved. Her talent is shown to do 2 main things in the livestream. Firstly, Acheron will gain 1 stack of Slash Dream the moment any unit on the field inflicts a debuff on an enemy. Secondly, Acheron will also inflict her own unique debuff on the targets inflicted with said debuff. From this, we know that Acheron prefers that her allies and her enemies both inflict debuffs one way or another as often as possible. This can include any of your allies' kit or even the effects from their Lightcones. And suddenly, this made one of the most pointless preservation Lightcone, Trend of the Universal Market, one of the best to pair with Acheron. Every burn debuff landed from this Lightcone will mean 1 Slash Dream for Acheron, getting her ulti even faster. If anything, March 7th may be the best of all time now with this Lightcone and the freeze dot as well in her ult. Both will count towards Acheron's talent. On top of your allies' kit, even enemies that inflict debuff on death or when they are weakened will count towards Acheron's talent as well. So these juicy dogs that inflicts bleed upon death will mean 1 stack of Slash Dream for Acheron, and she will land her unique debuff as well. With all of that said, Acheron will prefer being paired with debuffers. The obvious option here is Pella or Silverwolf, which will be her partners in crime. Taking into account how Acheron's talent work, she needs her allies to land debuffs fast, which makes Pella and Wolf very suitable since they are built with high speed. Another interesting composition will include Acheron in a dot-based setup, namely with Black Swan and Kafka. Needless to say, their kits are riddled with debuffs including dots and death shreds, perfect for Acheron to achieve 1 or 2 ults every cycle. The crazy part is we are not even told of our major traces yet, which wink wink, if you have been snooping around, you know what they are. As for a technique, we're not sure what it does versus a boss and the elite enemy, but if used against a normal enemy, you just defeat them without battling. Like, what? This is honestly enough reason for me to pull. It is too fun and sick to do this, man. As for her Lightcone, we don't know what it does yet, but it should be as usual the best slot for the banner character. The only real alternative would be Good Night Sleep Well. Otherwise, consider Fermata only if you pair her with Shocks or Wind Shear. Everything else kind of boosts your dot or boosts your effect hit rate. Doesn't really help Acheron too much. Looking at her kit, the Pioneer set will be the best slot. Alternatively, the good old Genius set plus Pella or Wolf, Lightning set, or Musketeer set can work with her fine. The livestream revealed new sets as well, which may fit her well for her planar sets. But for what we have right now, South Soda is easily the set to go for. Main stat-wise, crit rate, crit damage body, lightning orb, and attack rope should be the obvious answers. But her boots, however, can actually just be attack percentage. Considering you mostly want your allies to land debuffs so she can ult more, having her full focus on damage stats like attack boot can actually be pretty good. However, the trade-off between speed versus attack in this case, I will leave to some math gods out there or tail the live testing. I am not smart enough to know. Before we get to her pros and cons, her banner is fairly valuable just by having a Pella there. Not to mention mention Gallagher for anyone with 0 sustain characters at their disposal. As for her pros and cons, Acheron is simply a great DPS, single or multi-target. She can deal with them all. She needs 0 energy and can ideally ult faster and more often than anyone else. Her cons here are that she prefers debuffers as allies. You may not own them. She may not work well with some blessings in similar universe. Think about every energy related blessings being useless on her, right? In the same vein, Tingyun sucks with her. Now for the question, should you pull for Acheron? As usual, pull her if you like her. If you're a pure meta player, here's how I see it though. Always prioritize having 2 solo sustains. Then prioritize having 2 strong support characters. Only then you should think of pulling a DPS like Acheron. Objectively speaking, if you have an Acheron without any solo sustains or good supports on your account, you don't even get to play the game, you just die. But assuming you have your supporting cash ready and you are in need of a DPS, I will announce it to your face. Acheron is more than worth it, without a doubt. But the real debate starts when you think if you need her if you already have 2 top tier DPS anyway. This will then depend on your goals in the game. If you're just trying to obtain all stellar Janes in the game and you already own Jingliu and Dill with a good supporting cast, well, you can beat everything, can you? So realistically, you have 0 need for Acheron if you can already beat everything. But I will be completely honest though, if you're playing this game to have a good time, you should be pulling for Acheron. They introduced so many unique mechanics with her that the fun factor alone would convince me to pull for her. That's what games are for me at least. It's for fun. Hence, I will still end this question by saying, pull her if you like her, but she is just a really worthy DPS anyway. Oh god, that was way too long, but it ain't over yet. Moving on, we have Aventurine, an imaginary preservation character. I'll start with the conclusion. He's a great solo sustain that can debuff, buff, and deal follow-up attack damage. So yeah, an all-rounder. Let's start by taking a look at the most important aspect of his kit, the sustain. Aventurine's skill grants a very sizable and stackable shield to all allies. Compared to Japard's ultimate, it's actually still comparable. His talent grants Aventurine with 1 stack of blind bet for every attack suffered by an ally. He will gain 4 stacks if all 4 allies are hit. When blind bet reaches 7 stacks, he activates a follow-up attack and applies a stackable shield on all allies again. This means the shield will get thicker the more he uses his talent and skill up to a certain amount. His ulti grants himself a random amount of blind bet stacks. Then he attacks a singular enemy. This is where he also doubles as a debuffer and a buffer for the team. His ult inflicts a debuff on the target, and when your ally attacks an enemy with said debuff, your allies gain crit damage increase. This is similar to Haiya's Burden, which means it may work with AoE damage as well, so long as you do target an enemy with Aventurine's debuff. From what we know, he seems like the improved version of Japard, but we are not told whether or not he can deal with debuffs yet though. Rest assured, if Fushen could, Aventurine should be able to. Oh, you rarely release devolved characters, right? His technique is actually a dang casino. You get different levels of defense increase depending on the roles you get. It is kind of funny, but not too big a deal. His Lightcone should be his best in slot as usual, with good replacement being Moment of Victory and Landau's Choice. His best relic set is easily the Knight set, which is the only one that increases shield strength and defense as well. His planar set will be ideally Penacony, Broken Keel, or Fleet of the Ageless. The Bellabug set does give you increased defense, but Aventurine does not have the 50% F hit rate on him, so he will not be activated full set effect. It isn't ideal, but still usable. The main stats to look for will depend on whether or not he can actually do damage. His kit does hint for him to be built with some crit rate and crit damage, but we don't know until he's released or when more information is disclosed. If he's just supposed to be a sustain though, go for the Japard setup of speed boot, energy rope, and defense, everything else. In terms of his banner's value, it is honestly not too high. Eidolons are always welcome, but nothing here is someone that you have to go out your way to pull for, right? Here are a list of pros and cons with Aventurine. He can solo sustain for sure with the amount of shields he brings. He can land debuffs, he can buff allies. He can also do some damage as well, at least on paper. Shields are also very good in high Golden Guild Conundrum levels, so yeah, keep that in mind. His only few cons are he cannot heal. If you ever lose HP, you lose them for the rest of the fight. He's also bad with Blade. Blade wants his HP to go down from being hit, which the shield prevents that. Hence the question, should you pull for Aventurine? Again, pull if you like him, but in terms of meta talk, this should be pretty easy. If you have less than 2 solo sustains, Aventurine becomes a good option, but the problem does arise when we think about the Rerun banners though. We'll talk about that later. If you already have 2 solo sustains, Aventurine becomes not a need but a luxury. If for whatever reason you are a Yanqing or Arlen main, Aventurine becomes the best in slot sustain for them. They both want shields to perform optimally, right? If you like them that much, get Aventurine. As much as I would like to skip this one, but I still have to talk about Gallagher as well. He's a 4-star fire abundance character, so to start with the conclusion, he is a sub DPS healer that also lands debuffs. Yeah, they kind of just make them do a bunch of things at once these days. I won't be delving too deep because the conclusion is he isn't someone you would actively pull on the banner just to get him. From the livestream itself, it is revealed that Gallagher has something to do with break damage. His skill is a simple heal. His ult is an AoE attack that lands a unique debuff. His talent heals whichever ally that attacks an enemy with said debuff. He also has an enhanced basic mechanic after his ult, but from what we're told, all it does is do more damage and land decreased attack. A very generic 4-star character, nothing too busted. But it is worth noting, however, that he is fairly good paired with Acheron considering considering the amount of debuffs he does have. Now that we're done with the new stuff, the real problem actually arises. What about the rerun banners? We have Luocha's rerun first, then Jingliu second. Holy crud. This is like the toughest situation in all of Honkai Show's history. There are too much value on all of these banners that I don't even know what to say to you right now. However, looking at the current MOC, Hoyu is certainly giving Jingliu a harder time. And even then, she is more than capable to brute force her way through all the stages today. Hence, the direct showdown of the two DPS of Acheron and Jingliu can't really be clearly decided. The only wise choice here is understanding what your account truly needs and wait for Acheron's release to decide if she's really better. For me personally though, I think Jingliu's more beginner friendly while Acheron's more endgame oriented. Consider how easy it is to build Jingliu, right? You just need attack and crit damage for her to already work. As for Luocha versus Aventurine, they can both provide safety for your team. Some aspects better than the other. For example, Luocha can't stop your allies from being one-shot. Aventurine could. Aventurine cannot heal, but Luocha can. So yeah, it will depend on what you are more comfortable with. Everyone has different preferences, but the logic behind is still the same. You need two solo sustains. If you don't have them already, you gotta get either Aventurine or Luocha. If we are trying to be cutthroat and say who's better than the other, I will honestly say this is an impossible question. They're both good in their own right, in some situations better than the other, but if you just want someone that's easy to use without using your brain or anything, just go for Luocha, I suppose. You literally just need to go basic and ult for the whole time. Although Aventurine isn't that much harder. You just have to use your E. It's not that big a deal. And yeah, that'll be all for today. I hope I helped you guys decide at all, but yeah, it's gonna be a pretty tough choice for all the free-to-play players, man. And that is all. Take care.